Ronald is actually a friend of Centonomy. We have had so many sessions with you, I know, for careers, and it's such a pleasure to actually have you here. I remember the last time we had a chat, you were at Bosch, and now you're at BAN. So definitely there's been a progression in terms of your career. So karibu, and we look forward to you sharing your insights.
Thank you, Wendy, for inviting me. As always, it's a pleasure to take part in any Centonomy sessions. And thank you for the people who are online on Facebook and on the link on Zoom, because you taking time to get some insights on how to progress in your career is something very noble. And I'm happy for you to be here. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Ronald Arao. I am a family man. I have two girls that I'm very proud of, that are 4 and 6 years old. I am 37 years old. And something interesting is I am Kenyan, but I am partly Congolese because my mom is Congolese, and one way or the other met a Kenyan and found herself in Kenya. And I have quite a bit of commercial experience in terms of sales and marketing that I'm going to take you through. So basically, today is about my journey, and that's what I'm here to talk about. And a little bit about my education. I did KCPE and KCSE, KCPE in a public school and KCSE in a private school. And then I did my university degree in Daystar University. It was a double in business and marketing. And then I did a master's later on as I progressed in my career in USIU, and this was in strategic management. A few of my career achievements, when I was in campus, I did quite a bit, and I was nominated, I was given an award as being, it was called the Star of Excellence, and this was in Daystar. And then in my career at PZ Customs, which is in FMCG, in 2011, I was named High Potential and High Performance, which means I was doing the job well, and I could fit in bigger shoes, which means I could be promoted. Then I was given a career progression award from Daystar in 2016. And in Bosch, which was my last assignment before the current one, I was the best sales manager in Africa. And it's the top 1.1 club. And because of that, they actually took me to Budapest, me and my wife to Budapest on holiday. And in 2018, my last achievement was I was nominated or was placed as top 40, under 40. In Kenya, and that I would say is a notable achievement. So on a personal note, some of the things I like doing, which I will make reference to for entertainment, I love music and I love movies a lot. That's purely for entertainment. Then I like chess a lot. When I get the opportunity to play someone in chess, I really go for it, and that helps you develop strategy. Then there is traveling, which is about experience and opening your mind. And then the other thing I really like to do, but I have disappointed myself, especially in this period of the pandemic, is I like weightlifting. I like going to the gym, and I've done that for many years since campus. Now, basically, we're here to talk about being intentional in your career. And what you need to understand is having a career or working for someone can be fulfilling. Not all of us can be entrepreneurs. And sometimes in Kenya, we feel that everyone needs to have a side business. But because you have a side business doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur. People in Kenya start side businesses, or they say they're entrepreneurs to make more money. And you know what? As an entrepreneur, you basically need to understand the insights, have the need for the consumers, and create a solution. You don't become an entrepreneur to pay yourself more money. If you want to pay yourself more money, get a second job or open up something that's simple for you to manage. But do not become an entrepreneur because you just want to pay yourself an extra check. So then we talk about job versus a career. So for me, a job is, working because you want to get that paycheck. And having a career is working, yes, because you get that paycheck, but it is you do it to progress, you do it to get better. And as the previous speakers have said, it's over a long period of time. And having a career is all about the value you can add. Now, one thing I would say is do not get stuck in a dead-end job, because if you're just worried about a dead-end job, then you're not happy and you're not able to get your maximum potential. And people can get stuck in dead-end jobs. And one trick that I have learned and as I've associated with people is it's better to change your career at the beginning or at the start, because the more you progress, then it becomes a bit difficult. As I said, I've become a family man. And for me right now, it is not easy to make, changes to the career path. And also I've invested in myself in some time in building something. So it's easier to do it at the beginning. It's easier to take risks when you're out of campus, when you live with your mom. That's when you can change your career. You don't necessarily have to focus on the bills. The other thing is that we are going to discuss being intentional in your career, because nothing happens by chance, to be honest. And from my story that I'll share with you, you'll understand that this does not happen by chance. You have to be strategic and you have to be intentional about your career. So then for me, your career starts from campus. Yeah. So a little bit about my campus story. I was in Daystar University, and at that time, there was this fad about IT and Silicon Valley and people make money. So I always knew I wanted to be in marketing or to do a course related to business. But because of that fad and Silicon Valley, I thought, let me do MIS. MIS was Management Information Systems, which is IT and business to some extent. But there's a lot of coding. At that time, we were using C+ and the likes. And I did this for 6 months. And I found out in a very difficult way that this was not meant to me. So very quickly, I moved on to what I believed I would be good at, and this is marketing and business. And what I can tell the young people is do not do a degree for your parents. The first lesson is about passion. If you're not going to be passionate about what you do, then you're not likely to succeed. So make sure you do what you want and you do what you're good at, so that you can like it and you can be passionate about it. The other thing at campus is I participated quite a bit in extracurricular activities. I tried to work on campus as a student bus representative. I joined ISEC. I joined MSAD. I had extracurricular activities. I was the gym captain for about 3 years. And I also tried, although I feel I tried a bit late, because in my 4th year is when I said I need some job experience. And I got my first job in selling insurance. So in my holidays, instead of working, what I would do is I forgot what we used to call it, but I would do courses to try and shorten my time in campus. But ideally, when I think back, I should have spent the time working. So then you get into the time of confusion, because leaving school and campus, now you're a grown man and you're an adult. And this can be very confusing and it can be difficult, because at that time now you're expected to stand on your own. So I did some things. I tried to intern, different places, because as Doris, I believe, said, you have to try many things. Because when you get out of campus, you're not sure what you're good at. So you have to try many things, try to intern in different organizations before you can understand what you're good at. So the other lesson is try as many things as possible so you can understand what you're good at. I applied for numerous jobs, and the first 3 jobs I got were at a bank. Now for me, banking was a job because I wanted to be in marketing. But you know what, in Kenya, jobs are scarce. So the first job at the bank, I went in the first day and they said, I'm going to Mombasa. And I said, you know what, this is not workable, because I cannot go to Mombasa, because then if I go to Mombasa, most companies are in Nairobi. So I turned that job down. Like the first day I told them that is not workable. And the other thing is you need to have the big picture, because at that time, I think they were giving me 30,000 and I was earning 0 money. But you need to understand your bigger picture, because if you don't understand the bigger picture, then you will settle for less and you will shortchange yourself. Then the next job I had was at a bank, but this time again, it was in Nairobi, and I did it for about 3 months. And it was hard, because at one point I was stamping up to 2,000 checks. Yeah, I was in operations. You can imagine stamping 2,000 checks does not really add value to you. And I went to my seniors and I told them, you know what, I really want to be in marketing and commercial. How can I get there? And they said, you know what, you have to stamp these checks for now 2-3 years. And I said, you know what, that's difficult, let me try. But what broke the camel's back is that one day I had a job interview at Safaricom, and you know what, I had to drive like somewhere from Upper Hill to Westlands. And at that point at the bank, you know what, you just don't take off. You have to ask for permission. And I was late for this psychometric test, and you know what, I failed this psychometric test and the likes. I didn't do well. And I told myself, because the job at the bank I have right now is hampering me from opportunities, I can't do this anymore. I have to quit. And at that point, the folks are telling you that, you know what, how can you quit a job that's paying you? You know what, many Kenyans don't have any job, but you know what, I'm saying I have my bigger picture in mind, and I want to be in marketing and commercial. So that is a lesson, another lesson for you. Make sure you have the bigger picture in your career. So in my downtime, before I got a job, I tried to do my master's. Then I discovered, you know what, I can't do my master's in strategic management when I can't apply myself, when I haven't worked. So then I said, what is the best way to cut across my career? And I said, I will start applying for management trainee positions. And the problem with management trainee positions at that time was they were very competitive. So I applied to Unilever, I applied to Kenya Shell, I applied to Reckitt. Unilever, maybe 5,000 Kenyans applied. Well, I had a really good CV. We can talk about CVs, and they actually took my CV, but I think I was a bit late. Then I applied for the management trainee position at Kenya Shell. And out of 2,000 applicants, they interviewed about, I think, 200 people, and I was in the top 10. However, they only wanted 2 people, and I did not get the job. So then I tried management trainee at Reckitt Benckiser, and I think about 1,000 people applied for it. They interviewed 400 people, and I was one of the top 3. And how I got the job at Reckitt was I did not have a lot of career experience. But during my interviews, I said, this is what I did in campus. And I was able to develop a shoe, and the shoe was called the drum shoe. And this was the marketing position. This was how I priced it. This was how I went about it. And I was able to use that experience and what I have done in campus to be able to get that job. And you can imagine, out of 400 interviews, they only wanted 1 marketer, that was me, and 2 salespeople. So then I get the job at Reckitt, and this was where I had hard learnings. And you know what, I learned about attitude, effort, you know what, as a way to progress in my career. And like Pauline, I had a very difficult and a bad boss. And like she said, do not leave a job for your boss. Leave a job not for someone, but because of your strategic need. So I had to maneuver and deal with my boss and learn how to deal with politics. And one of the things I had to do was rebrand myself. And one of the things I did to rebrand myself was I started wearing a tie. Yeah. So people were not wearing a tie at Reckitt, but I said, I'm going to buy some blazers. I'm going to wear a tie. And you know what, I'm going to improve the perception. And I started working on Saturdays, and I didn't even have a car at that point. So you can imagine driving to industrial area. That was about taking about 3 matatus. And I said, I'm going to work on Saturdays, because at that time, you know what, we were not working with laptops. We had a desktop. So anyway, by the time I was leaving PZ Customs, this boss was in tears, because she was like, oh, you're so good at your job and the likes. But I had an opportunity to improve myself, and I was going to PZ Customs. And PZ Customs was, I was moving up the ladder, but it was going to expose me to bigger markets in Africa. And because of the bigger markets in Africa, I was able to go to different countries, see what they're doing in terms of products, and bring those. And how I got onto Top 40 Under 40 was bringing some novel products like liquid detergent. Like I was one of, PZ Customs was, I would say, one of the first companies to bring in liquid detergents. And I had to travel to Poland, see how they do it, come and localize the product, and then launch it. Then after about 4 years at PZ Customs, I'm like, I've done FMCG for a number of years, and I consider myself an early adopter. You know, I like technology. I'm one of these people who, you know, believe in, you know, 7.2.2 Dolby Atmos sound, you know, refrigerators, you're looking at the compressor and the like. So I said, I need to move into another industry so that I can grow. So the funny thing is, I had started researching about Samsung. Samsung, it was becoming a global leader. Their footprint was growing in Kenya. And I had to maneuver to join Samsung. And I think it was 3 instances I interviewed 1 year, and then they went quiet on me. And then the next year I interviewed. And then the third year, or the third time, sorry, they actually called me and they said, Ronald, we've heard about what you're doing in the market, and we want you to interview with us. And they called me, and I went for the interview and I was successful, and I joined as the marketing manager. Samsung is a truly, how can I say, global company. Samsung does about $200 billion in revenue. Yeah, I would say what Safaricom does in a year is what Samsung does in a week, 5 days to a week. So it's a truly global company. And because of being in a global company, then you interact with people in different countries, and you get an experience from different places. So I joined Samsung as a marketing manager. I did that for about 2 years. And then for me, I've always wanted to be a general manager. So have the big picture, yeah. And being a general manager means you need to be strong in marketing, but you also need to be strong in sales. So I moved into product management, which it was dealing with products, but it also gave me key account experience, and it was setting me up for my next role. Now, the thing that I learned at Samsung was I learned to be methodical and meticulous. The Koreans are excellent with Excel and PowerPoint. They VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, all the things, they are extremely good at it. So I learned to be methodical and meticulous. And I did that for about 4 years. And I think it was Pauline who said, you need to move for strategic reasons. So at that point, then my interest was building a company from scratch, because I joined Samsung, I was in PZ Customs, I was in Reckitt, and all systems are set, and you just plug in and you build on the systems that are set. So my issue was I wanted to build a company from scratch, and Bosch was giving me that opportunity. Now, one thing you have to know is I interviewed with Bosch for about, I think about 1.5 years. And what I don't tell many people is that I got a job in between Samsung and Bosch, and I was at that job for about 1 month. And well, I'm not totally ashamed of it, because I had been interviewing with Bosch. And then now all of a sudden, Bosch comes and says, yes, now we are ready for you after 1.5 years. And at this point, I had gotten another job in another company that I will not mention now. But what you need to know is I told you to have the bigger picture. So moving to Bosch, I was moving to Bosch so I can start a business from scratch. Yeah. And I actually had to take a pay cut to go into Bosch. So like I said, you have to keep the big picture in mind. And I took a pay cut to go to Bosch. But Bosch was giving me the opportunity to build markets from scratch. I was based in Kenya, and I was in charge of 7 countries. So I had to open up Uganda, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Tanzania. I had to appoint distributors and open up the market from scratch. And I leveraged a lot from my networks. And that's why that's the other important thing. You need to build on your networks, because you never know when you're going to need them. At Bosch, one of my key accomplishments, because remember, I told you that at Samsung, I became methodical and I became meticulous. So at Bosch, I was plugging in, I was growing the business. I was the first employee in home appliances, yeah? And I was building the business from scratch. I was reporting into Turkey and South Africa. And I was basically telling them, this is how we are going to grow this business, and this is how we are going to build this business. And because of that, in 2017, I won the award of being the best sales manager in Africa. Yeah, out of about 200 people in sales or so. And like I said, that was not easy, because, and for that, they gave me an award and actually took me and my wife on holiday to Budapest or some razzmatazz, with the award and the likes. At Bosch, it was good. I got to travel to countries that I would never really travel to, like Russia and some countries in Europe, So it was a good experience, and it expanded my knowledge in terms of, I became a guru in supply chain, because the products are manufactured in Turkey. First, they're manufactured in maybe in different countries. Some are manufactured in Turkey, they're all collected in Turkey, and then they're sent into the different markets. So you have to be a guru at supply chain. So those are some of the things that I became really good at. But then the other thing is, when I was at Bosch, it was a very lean team. So it was me, and then I employed 2 other people. But we are a very lean team, and the work is done centrally. You know, I'm not in charge of my P&L. Someone in South Africa does that. Someone is in charge of supply chain in Turkey and the likes. And I did not have the grasp of the business. And so now I felt the need to have a sense of running a business and understand all the items that go into running a business and having a big team, because I'm also growing and I'm also improving myself. And that comes with my new role. I am currently employed at Band Manufacturing, which is also a different, how can I say, industry. Yeah, I had been in FMCG. Then I have moved into electronics for a number of years. And then now I've moved into a social enterprise. But the goodness of a social enterprise is I'm in touch with the mwananchi. You know, at Bosch, I'm dealing with the creme de la creme. I have my showroom in Westlands and the likes. But now I'm dealing with the mwananchi. So now I have to travel to Kerugoya. I have to travel to Embu. I have to travel to, you know, Nakuru and be in touch with the mwananchi. And for my goals in life, because my goal is establishing my own product and brand in Kenya. So I need to be in touch with the mwananchi, and I need to be able to run a business. And at BAN, I have a large team. My team consists of about 60 individuals from different departments in market research, business intelligence, commercial, obviously sales, and marketing, and part of after sales service. So it's a big team, and I'm also learning. And the thing I need to say is that not everyone can be an entrepreneur. And when I was at Bosch, I had quite a bit of time. And one of the items is I said, let me try and be an entrepreneur and do some of these side businesses because I have some spare time. You know, I have 1 or 2 days in the week because I'm not that busy. And, you know, I had lessons. I actually lost some money in some bad deals. Then I told myself, if I'm not ready for entrepreneurship now, let me get those skills so that I can be able to have the right skills and develop myself to get into entrepreneurship. So I said, over the next 5 years of my career, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, I'm going to focus on myself, and I'm going to focus on the value that I can add into companies. I think Pauline said that she got the insight at about 40. This thing does not happen overnight. You do not become an entrepreneur overnight. It's a marathon, and it's progressive. So people need to understand that you need to understand yourself, and before you become an entrepreneur. So that is my journey, and currently, like I said, I'm at Band Manufacturing. And to enter Band Manufacturing, some of the key things that some of the speakers have talked about was networking. Networking is extremely key. Networking is basically getting information, but what do you do with that information is the most important thing. I believe someone said that 70% of the jobs are either taken before you even understand them. So how do you come into contact with this job? You have to network. And the goodness of the times now is you don't need to tarmac like I did. I had to take my CVs to Unilever, to Shell, and the likes. But now all you have to do is you have to join Glassdoor or LinkedIn. And there are different courses that you can get to optimize your page. And believe me, you have to optimize your page. I get surprised when someone says they're looking for a job, yet they don't have a picture of themselves. They haven't articulated their achievements on LinkedIn. And it's the easiest and the cheapest way, how can I say, to progress in your career. Then one thing you have to know in your career is people have actually been talking about office politics. Office politics is something that you cannot run away from. And it's something you have to learn to deal with, and you have to navigate office politics. But one thing I always tell people is that you're either going to spend your time on office politics or you're going to spend your time working. Now, the most important thing is to deal with office politics or maneuver it very quickly and then move on to the job. Because one of the most important things for you to progress in your career is the effort that you put on your job. Yeah, you have to put in effort to be able to progress. The other thing I'm going to talk about is attitude. Yeah, attitude can never be understated, and it's not overrated. You may not be very good at your job, yet you maintain it because you have the right attitude. You may be very good at your job, but you have a bad attitude, and believe me, you will not go far because people do not want to work with people who have bad attitudes. And with an attitude, all you have to do is be positive in terms of your work. You need to be able to rise to the challenge. You know what? If there's a Christmas party, if your boss has a different assignment for you, please plug into it. Right now with this generation, whenever, let's say, someone moves on maternity, their job needs to be taken by other people. And if someone is like, you know what, you need to increase my salary for me to be able to do that, then that is not the right attitude. And something I would like to add is that there are different stages of your career. There's a time where you need the employer more. And that's why you have to tarmac hard. You have to tell them why they need you more and why they need to employ you. So when you're going for the interview, it's what value you can do. I'm always surprised when people come for interviews and you ask them, let's say it's a management trainee interview, and you ask them, so what do you want to do? And they say anything. And when someone says anything for me, then you're looking for a job. Then you're looking for the paycheck. As compared to the management trainee who's going to come and say, I want to be in marketing because I like building brands. This is what I did in campus. I had my job for selling slippers and shoes, and I always wanted to improve the market. You see, those are two different individuals. There's someone who wants a job. On the other hand, there's someone who wants to build a career. And we want to employ people or work with people who have a long-term pursuit and want to build a career. Then the other thing I would like to comment on is about fear, because what makes people not progress is fear. And at the beginning, for example, you know, it could even be fear of a paycheck. And as I said earlier, if you get stuck in a dead-end job for years and years, the longer you are, the harder it takes to move. So do not be fearful. Take the risks early in your career. And let me just say that it's never too late. Even if you've been working for 20 years, if you're not happy, it's never too late to change your career. Fear also is when you're working on a job. People make reference usually to Indians and the likes, you know what? And they've been sat on and they're on that job. And I can tell you for a fact, people who are scared at their jobs, people who do not speak up in their jobs, do not progress. You need to know your worth, and you need to be able to speak up, and you need to be able to share different ideas. So you cannot go for meetings day in, day out, and you're scared of your manager. You don't challenge him. You don't give him different aspects or another way of thinking because you're scared of the paycheck. That's all you're worried about. So you need to be able to rise above that fear. The other thing with fear is, you know what, let's say you're in a situation and your boss is stressing you. Your boss is stressing you and you've come to the end. And sometimes I'm amazed when I tell people and they're like, you know what, I'm going to quit my job. And I tell them, have you even approached your boss? Because deep down, we are all human beings. Yeah, and we're all at our jobs for noble intentions. No one is at a job to waste time. And people need to understand someone is there for a noble intention, to work, add value to the company, and get their paycheck. So solve conflict, even with your boss. Even if you've gotten to an end and you feel like this guy is pushing me against the wall and he wants me out of the company, approach him and tell him, you know what is the problem? What is the problem? Is it me? Because you should not have a problem with me. Maybe you have a problem with my job. So tell me, what is the issue with my job? What don't you like? And how can I improve? I can tell you, as a person who manages people, those are the people I appreciate. Someone who's going to come and say, what is the problem you have with me? How can I improve my job? Those are the people that you put value on, as compared to the yes man. The yes man always agrees and says yes, yes to everything. Those people who always say yes do not get very far on their careers. And you need to be able to know your worth. If your boss, you know what, yeah, you know, sometimes you've just messed up and the boss is going to shout and, you know, say you've messed up, fine. You need to be able to take it. You need to be able to be resilient. But the one thing is you have to have respect from your boss. So never allow someone to sit on you, never allow someone to abuse you. And you know what, it never allow someone to make it personal. It's not personal, it's about the job. Yeah. So always, if you see someone is really sitting on you and it's becoming personal, please talk to them. It doesn't matter if it's the CEO or whatever company it is, just talk to them and understand how you can correct the situation. Conflict, for me, I always say that conflict should be solved very quickly. I don't like conflict. So if I have an issue with an employee, one of my subordinates, I deal with it very quickly because it is not about you. It is just about your work. So solve conflict very quickly and move on. I have said many things, but I talked about trying different things to understand what you're good at, be passionate, have the right attitude, understand the bigger picture, guys. It's not about moving for 20K or 10K. At a point in my career at Reckitt Bankers, actually, Kenya Shell, which I had done the management trainee program with, called me back for a job. And they were giving me club membership. They were giving me 50% on my salary. And you know what? I thought to myself, where do I want to be in the next 5 years? And I said, I want to be one of the best marketers in Kenya. So I turned down the job at Kenya Shell. And I had dissonance, honestly. You know what? I had club membership, 50% of my salary, and I had dissonance on that choice. But you know what? When I look back and how I have progressed, I had the bigger picture in mind, and it was the right choice at that point. So have the bigger picture. Then we have talked about networking and resilience as well. Guys, especially the young guys, things do not happen overnight. I told you I interviewed with Bosch for 1.5 years. I looked for Samsung for almost 2 years before I joined them. Things do not happen overnight. You need to have resilience and you need to be patient. But in closing, because I believe in keeping it short and simple, I will say, I will talk about motivation and discipline. I believe everyone on this call today is motivated. That's why you're taking 2 hours on a Saturday to come and listen to me, a stranger. And you guys are all motivated. But without discipline, you are not going to progress in your career. So something very close to my heart, I will use the example of bodybuilding. Yeah, I told you I was captain of the gym. And pre-COVID, I was trying to bodybuild as well and go to the gym. And then I've kind of fallen off the bandwagon. I'm not happy about that. But if you look at bodybuilders, you know what? There's the classic men's physique. There's the men's physique. There's the classic men's physique. And then there's the pros. You know, people like Phil Heath, people like Ronnie Coleman. You know, some of you guys may know. These guys are actually billionaires back in Kenya shillings just from bodybuilding. But something you need to understand is to go into pro bodybuilding, it takes about 10 years of discipline. And then you're an amateur. You're not even a pro. You're competing with the guys who are number 20. So it takes about 10 years. Now, in those 10 years, you're working out about 6 times in a week. And you're working out up to 2 times in a week. It doesn't happen overnight. Your diet, you know, these guys do not talk about eating. They talk about taking in protein. So, you know what, you're having a boiled chicken, which is salted. Because you're taking in protein, you have to eat about 8 meals a day. But without that discipline, you will not become a bodybuilder. The other thing is consistency with discipline. You cannot start and stop, because if you start and stop, then you're not going to be good at what it is you do. So I would say, in closing, the most important thing that you need to have as you're intentional about your career is that discipline. Be consistent and be intentional about building your career. Do not do it, don't be lethargic at your job and then at the end of the year attend a couple of forums and the likes and think you're going to progress. You have to be intentional, you have to be disciplined and consistent for you to be able to progress. Winnie, I'll end at that. I don't know if you have any questions for me, Wendy.
Yes. You have a couple of questions. Thank you so much for that session. Excellent. I think for me, what I'll summarize your session is nothing happens by chance. You have to be very, very strategic. So because of time, I'll just ask one question, then probably you can be able to go to the comment box and also answer a couple of questions that have been asked. So Agnes asked, thanks, Ronald. Having worked in various positions and companies, how did you determine that it's time to move to a different company? And what is the best way to handle such a transition?
Okay, that's a good question. So time to move. Number one is I usually spend about 3 to 5 years on a role. I would not want to spend more than 5 years on a role. So that is my timeline. And I am in a very, how can I say, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous role because it's commercial. So we also get, you can also only do so much. After about 5 years, you've done what you can do for the product in terms of your thinking. So what you need to do is consistently research. So when I was in FMCG, I wanted to be in FMCG and I wanted to work for the top tier brands. And that's how I joined Reckitt. And I moved to PZ Cussons because I had joined the top tier brands and now I wanted to work with brands who are not really top tier and they want to improve their products. So that's why I joined PZ Cussons. So as I was in FMCG, you're doing research consistently. As I said, this is a journey and it's a process. So you're doing research consistently. You're researching on the companies you want to work for. You're researching on the industry you want to work for. And that's important and it needs to be consistent. And at a point, like for me, after 3 years, then I start pursuing these, I start networking with these companies. Like I said, to join electronics, which was in Samsung, it did not happen by chance. I had to network. And like I said, it took about, maybe on the second year is when I joined after networking and doing a couple of interviews. So you have to network with the different companies and industries that you want to be in. I think that's the best way that I would answer that question.